we have to go through the steps as we have to know ourselves and we have to connect with ourselves. If we don't do that, it's not going to just magically appear. And you can wear integrative clothes and have this professional suit. But if you're feeling inferior inside and you don't trust yourself, it's going to show.
Welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast, the podcast where we debunk the eat less, move more, shrink more mentality and focus on what really matters, which includes your relationship with your body, food, self-worth, and the behaviors that align with all of those. I'm your host, Christina Hathaway, licensed therapist with specialized training in food and body obsession, certified personal trainer and nutrition coach. At the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast, we believe what you see in your mind, you see in the mirror. So let's have a conversation about that. Before we get into today's episode, I want to make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Also, if you don't want to miss any content that's being dropped, make sure you hit that notification bell as well. I also want to know who are the people you want to hear from on this show and what topics would you like me to continue to cover. Thank you so much for your continued support. Now, let's get into the episode. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. I'm your host, Christina, as you know, and today I have a wonderful interview with my girl, Pearl Mashour. She's an educator, a mother of three, and a master women's empowerment coach, which we love. She's also the host of the breakthrough podcast, Female Fluence, which I recently spoke on and we just connected. Her unwavering mission is to cultivate a thriving community wherein women are unapologetically themselves. Yes. And she is determined to inspire every woman to embrace her authentic essence. So let's give her a round of applause. Welcome, Pearl. I'm so excited to have you on the Mindset Mirror Connection. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited as well.
Yes, I introed you and I'm just so excited, and selfishly right now, I need an empowering girly to come on and make me feel like, yes, you will get through this. And I'm very upfront with my audience about, my dad being sick and all of that. And I feel like everything happens for a reason because today I need you. So I'm glad that you're here and that you took the time for this.
I'm glad. And I have to say, I'm really sorry. I've been there 2 years ago. 2.5 years ago, I lost my dad to cancer. And I just remember the time and the hospital and then hospice. It's a difficult time. And it was right the night before Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving is always a very difficult time, for my family. So I get it. So my heart goes out to you. I hope, things get better.
Yeah, he has cancer and I didn't know that about you. And did we talk about that before? I'm a blur.
We talked about so many things but I didn't think that. Yeah.
Yeah. He has stage 4 lung cancer, but he ended up in the hospital this time and it spread to his liver and his colon. And so, it's just such a odd, I cannot even put it into words, this experience of it, because you get this kind of, you'll get one doctor come in and say one thing, and then the other doctor says the other thing. And like one is false hope, the other is no hope. It's just so much. So maybe we can talk about that later. I will say having people who have gone through it, who understand the words I can't say is huge. It's huge. So, but like I said, this is an empowering conversation. So I want to just start with your story, how you came to be a master a women's empowerment coach. I love that title. You're like a superhero. How did we get here?
I love it. Thank you so much. Okay, so I will try to do like a very short, condensed version. Basically, I wanted to be my goal was to be a district attorney or a journalist. But I met my husband at a very young age and he was going to medical school. And as I talk about in my other talks all the time about how as women, we're always self-sacrificing. So I knew that I wanted to have a big family and that was really crucial and important to me. And so I decided that, okay, that's not going to work. So I didn't do that. And so from there on, I went into like project manager and IPOs and numbers because that was the thing to do. And I wanted to make my parents happy. So that was like another self-sacrifice and I hated it.
Wow.
And then fast forward after, some few years, I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I went and got my teaching credential to become a teacher because I figured I mean, I loved kids. I had a passion for kids and education and literacy. So I thought, okay, this is a good way and I can still have a family. And then when I did that, it was great. But once I have three kids, now they're like almost 20, almost 18 and 14. So at
Mhm.
that point, I had them back to back, and my husband worked really long, crazy hours that he was on call. And it just didn't seem it didn't make sense to hire someone else to take care of my kids,
Right.
financially, all of that, and for me to be taking care of other kids. So again, I paused my own
Mhm.
interests, my career, and I stopped and I became a homemaker, stay-at-home mom,
Mhm.
which is so funny because I feel like society really puts like a damper on the whole term of stay-at-home mom because I
Yes.
just felt like wherever I went, it was like, oh, what do you do for a living? And I would be like, oh, I'm just a stay-at-home
I'm
mom.
just, yes, it's always with the I'm just
Yeah.
in front of it.
Yes. And I did that for so long where I just felt like, I'm the one who's like, making myself shrink and
Mhm.
making myself work, but moms are like one of the most important jobs in the world. So that was that. And then I did all of the mom things. I was a PTA, Girl
Mhm.
Scout, all of it. And then all of a sudden I turned 40, had a
Mhm.
huge party, everything was great. And then the next day and throughout, it was like one, I feel like I kind of got fearful. Like I saw my kids and I saw like they're older and they don't need me the same way they used to need me. And they're going to keep needing me less, like the way that it
Mhm.
used to be. And it was one of those moments where I kind of looked in the mirror, kind of like, I don't know, midlife, whatever you want to call it, right? I was like, okay, like I sacrificed everything to help my husband become successful. He has a career and he's a professional. I sacrificed everything for my kids. Now they're going to start doing things and they're going to like go on with their lives. But then what do I have? Like, and it was scary because you don't want to say it out loud, but like being a mom and a wife, like that just wasn't enough for me. And at that point, I didn't know that. I was going through all these emotions. I became very fatigued.
Mhm.
I had chronic pain. And then, like, when I went to get blood work, they said that, oh, it seems like you're kind of perimenopausal. And I was like, wait, I just turned 40. This can't happen overnight.
Right.
And it was a journey. Then I went to like a rheumatologist. It was like you have fibromyalgia, you have depression, you need to take out medicine. So I kind of refused because I knew it's like in my heart when I started kind of quieting the noises and listening within, I had a feeling that there was much more and something was calling me and my body was sending me a message and I didn't need to go
Mhm.
on medication. Something was out there and it was also that like guilt of saying, well, I have a great life. I live in a great house. Like I'm
Mhm.
grateful. I'm blessed. And as a woman, it's very hard to say, wait, but I kind of need something more. And you feel bad for saying that I have three healthy children. So it was like one of those things. And so that kind of led me to do a lot of self-healing and just working on myself and making myself like a priority. And then I
Mhm.
decided that, you know what? There's a calling for this. Like there's a lot of women that I see at events where they say that they're okay, you meet them at a party, but there's that emptiness in their eyes where just like I had felt invisible. Like I just felt like I didn't really matter too much. Like I was
Mhm.
just here to do my roles and I was doing them really well. But what was I doing for myself? And so I went into empowerment coaching and then I decided to start a podcast as well because I just felt like there was no really safe space for women to talk and feel inspired and not be judged and have these type of conversations. And I guess part of me, because I wanted to be a journalist back then, right? I was, this is not the same thing, but it's got to do right now. It'll work for
Mhm.
me. So that's my story.
I love it so much. I also was going to go to school to be a journalist, by the way, and then ended up
How funny.
in this psych program. It's interesting because a lot of the newer research and really maybe it's just the people that I follow, they follow and explain exactly what you said in regards to like autoimmune issues, chronic pain, chronic fatigue. There is research that the reason why more women have those diagnoses is because we are such people pleasers and we sacrifice ourselves, our own wants, our own emotional expression, our own needs for so many other people that our bodies are never allowed to express. And therefore, that nervous system is constantly being stunted and it manifests. It's funny, I literally just said this on my last episode. It manifests into physical symptoms. And you were experiencing that, but so many other women would go to the doctor, they'd medicate them, right? They'd be on these medications forever, not even realizing that there is a healing process within themselves that needs to happen that is better than any medicine. So I'd be interested to hear, when you were going through the healing process, like I know for me, a lot of my spiritual connection was what helped get me out of it. What stands out to you that was really the stepping stone to healing or stepping stones to healing?
I think, well, I started reading a lot of self-help books. And then I started actually kind of like with one of my friends who was kind of on the same journey. We would have like a book club, but it was like a soulful book club where we would kind of have these deep conversations that nobody really wants to talk about. And I felt like it's just not me. So that connection was really good. I've been doing hot yoga for like 20 years. So I kind of stopped that throughout with pregnancy and with kids and not having enough time. And I kind of really dived back into it and made it a priority. So I think really, and I love to walk. So
Yes.
walking for me is everything. It's like I just, whether I listen to music, a podcast or an audible or just pure silence, that is the way that I can like shift my mind. I can let go of like bad energy, push the restart button. So I would do a lot of walking and just thinking and really like listening to myself and journaling to see like, wait, what's happening? There's something more that's calling out to me, and just kind of starting to self-prioritize. Like if I wanted to do something, I would do it, where before, like for example, like summertime, I would always not do any of my like workout classes. I was like at the kids' mercy. Like I am the Uber driver, carpool mom. I am like the fun mom. We're gonna do Disneyland. So everything that had to do with my schedule, I would pause it. Like I wouldn't do anything. I was like available to them 24/7, which none of my other friends would do, but I did that. And that, and it was a rough transition because especially when I started working in the last few years, it was like, wait, mom, you're not available.
Right.
That was that, kind of setting boundaries and making sure that, no, I have a life. I'm a person besides being a mom.
Yeah. Well, you talked about, the concept of like self-remembrance, right? And learning to not forget ourselves. And that is, like you said, it's a transition for everybody. But I'm curious, as you continue to make yourself a priority and as the kids adjust to this new you, what have you received any feedback from them, like in a positive way that says, like, I see a difference, or how old are they?
For my kids?
Yeah.
Definitely. So I have the almost 20 and then 18 and 14. Two older ones are girls. And I would say at the beginning, it was a tough transition because, when you're giving away 100% of your time and they just know you're at their, on their demand for them. But now I feel like they have this such higher level of respect for me. And they're really impressed that like I kind of just decided this is what I'm going to do. And I went after it, and they've seen the long hours. It just, from the beginning, like figuring out your logo, figuring out your name, just starting all of that. My first recording of my podcast, like 2 years ago. So it was just, they've seen that transition and that growth. And they're really inspired that, okay, like our mom, who was like the stay-at-home mom, all of a sudden she decided that she wants to like put a message out into the world, and she's going to do something for herself. And she said she's going to do it, and she did it. So it's like that. They always tell me like I'm an example, and I always remind them, I'm like, you can do anything you set your mind to. So definitely I feel like I've inspired them, or at least I hope I have.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so empowering to see your transition. I'm sure, that is only going to set them up for, of course, they're going to go through struggles, but just resilience, right? It's almost like vicarious resilience, if you will. And it also empowers them, says, okay, I've been here for you this entire time, and now I'm going to step away. What will you do? Right. And, I just think that's amazing. You've talked about, obviously I study all my guests and I stalk you a little bit. So when I say you've talked about, that's what I mean, that women don't need permission, right? We need reflection. And everything you're saying is how you were able to reflect inward. How do you teach that to your clients? Because I think the woman that we're talking about, who is self-sacrificing and putting everyone before themselves, really struggles with ever just stopping and listening to yourself. What are some ways that you help women gain that awareness?
So permission, I feel like, keeps you waiting. You're waiting.
Mm-hmm.
Best way to just say, oh, well, I'm going to wait to do this when this happens. And it's like never going. Reflection is kind of the time that helps my clients to kind of wake up, to check in with themselves and reconnect. So I have created a framework based on my Female Fluence title, so Fluence. So I'll just briefly just really touch on it because it's much more detailed.
You know what drives my clients absolutely crazy is they're eating clean and doing all the workouts, but they don't see the weight budge. Their sleep is all over the place. Their hormones are through the roof and they feel like they're going crazy.
Yeah, it's frustrating because 9 out of 10 times it's something hormone related that no one's looking at. It's perimenopause, menopause. Our biology internally has shifted, but no one's changing the strategy as far as approach.
What if perimenopause support included like therapeutic guidance, nutrition, exercise, and hormonal support all in one place?
Seriously, it would be great if you didn't have to track down like 10 different experts just to feel like yourself again.
That's why I created the Mindset of Menopause and have partnered with Dr. Jordan Trapp to create a comprehensive plan to your hormonal health.
Together, we are making medical insight meet emotional strategy. So your symptoms make sense, your plan actually works, and your power comes back online.
This isn't just support. This is your comeback season.
Click below for more information.
But so I start with my clients with F, which is finding your foundation. So we really check in and hone in on their values because realistically, you would be surprised. So many people do not know what is important to them, what are their values. They have absolutely no idea. And it's like anything they had, all those things that they had, those dreams and desires back when they were kids that they wrote in their journal or in their 20s or even in their 30s or whatnot. It's like life comes in, there's ups and downs, and we kind of push all those things back because as women, we are nurturers, we're caretakers, and we want to help everyone else. And it's like we just put ourselves in the back burner. So one of the things we start doing is kind of making them have a list and then working on either weekly or daily doing something that aligns with their values instead of just being on autopilot and saying yes to everyone and forgetting about themselves. So if you say, you're going to working out is important to you and workout is on your list, it needs to be done. It can't be the first thing that gets crossed off because the day gets too chaotic. It's like making an appointment with yourself. The next one is L, which is listening inward, really listening, like we talked about, to those messages and knowing what's happening and making sure that you have that quiet time, journaling. Next one, it would be U for using your voice, really working on hearing yourself, checking in and saying, who is silencing you? What are you scared of about actually, saying what you're interested in, what you like to do? Well, whose approval are you still seeking? There is E for embracing yourself, letting go of perfectionism, imposter syndrome, all those inner beliefs. So we go through steps of really working on those. What letter are we on? I'm trying to think. And good.
I got you, girl.
Nourishing your confidence, because confidence is so powerful for us as a woman, especially to enter a room and really know that we can do this with our posture, with our head high up, and not be afraid to speak up, whether it's in a boardroom or a meeting or whatever it may be. C is claiming your space, knowing your boundaries, saying no, and instead of always taking it, clarifying the direction of your life and going in the right direction. And last but not least is embody and expand. And that's when it's like you take all your sides, your wounded, your real parts, kind of put it together. And you no longer need that permission because you've gone through all those steps and you realize that you're ready. You really want to live in alignment. and you know that what direction in life you want to go through. So all of these, it's like I go through it in much more detail. We go through the whole map of consciousness to move you from your lower level and bring you up. But that's kind of in a nutshell how I work with my clients.
I love it. It's absolutely insane how much we think alike. I know my clients listening are like, this is basically a rendition of my, like, how we go through the mindset method. Now, obviously, the content is different. And it's what stood out to me when you're saying that. I was like, wow, that's so crazy how similar we think, but we also went through a similar healing process where it was, for me, it was a breakup and having to face my wounds and having to come back to, recreating the story with myself and using that healing to create that process, my mindset method. And then for you, creating the fluence process. And so I just needed to say that. I'm like, oh, I'm hearing the same thing. It's amazing because it works. It works, right? You said something about confidence. And for a lot of listeners, they think confidence is something that is external, that is the way I look, the way I dress. And that's a secondary symptom of confidence because you're going to wear the things that make you feel good. But if you don't know what makes you feel good, you're not going to choose those outfits. And beyond choosing an outfit, it's I listen to myself. Well, let's go back to the L. I am creating these things that I do, right? So exercise, and I'm making that a priority. And then when I do it, I'm making a promise to myself. And then when I'm hearing my body and feeling proud and feeling happy that I did that, then it makes me confident that I can do it again. And I want listeners to hear that process that you just said, because confidence wasn't number 2. She's down here at the bottom, right? Because you have to, confidence is something that comes from within, not from outside of ourselves. And I think a lot of women think the opposite. Do you experience that a lot?
I totally agree with you. Or some people even think, they just say, I'm just not a confident person. Like they think it's something you're just born with. So like, right. Special, trait that some people have and some people don't.
Like a gene or something.
It's not true. We can all confident. And it's just, if we have to go through the steps, as we have to know ourselves and we have to connect with ourselves. If we don't do that, it's not going to just magically appear. And you can wear the greatest clothes and have this professional suit. But if you're feeling inferior inside and you don't trust yourself, it's going to show.
Right. It's all a performance, right? It's as if you're going on a stage and putting on a costume, but you're not the character, right? You take it off at the end of the day. And you mentioned like all parts of yourself. That wounded part is the main character. So when it comes to like performing, right? What do you see as the cost of that when women, they have a false sense of confidence? I call it false confidence that, well, I put the suit on and I pretend or I perform. But at the end of the day, I take it off and I feel all of those negative feelings, the shame, the guilt, whatever it is. What is the cost of that when we don't face the truth?
It will catch up to you. I'm a big believer of healing all wounds, and we can, we can have these different archetypes and we can bury our pain and we can put that mask on. And we can do it for so long. Eventually, like we're talking about, all of a sudden, the body keeps score, right? And all of a sudden, we'll have the pain come from somewhere for no reason, or the depression, or the fatigue, or just, there's all these different ways that it's going to affect your life. Or you see a lot of even just women who lash out, or they seem just angry all the time, or they're gossiping, or there's something else going on. And instead of dealing with that problem, they think if they gossip or they lash out, or if they're angry at the supermarket to the clerk, that's going to solve their problem. So it's that it happens. And whenever I see really angry people, even driving, and I'm like, okay, there's something going on. I try to have compassion. I work on that all the time, but usually there's something within where they're not solving the main problem, and they're, it's aggravating them in different ways and it's triggering them. And until they actually resolve that, and that those are all the costs, it's your life. You have one life. So if you're not living in alignment and you're not living to be healed and living your truth, I mean, the truth is that's my biggest thing that I work with my clients to be able to stop shrinking and to live a life where they're not waiting for that permission, but they're living with confidence and truth and their real voice, and being able to speak up and say, I'm upset, or I need help. I'm going through something. I'm not alone. I need somebody. Being confident enough to actually reach out to somebody.
No, and when you don't do that, you take it out on the clerk. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because again, you're not I like to compare it to, all day we have these little stressors that we blow this air into a balloon, right? And for the women who we're talking about who really struggle with using their voice or asking for help, that balloon gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And there's one of two things happens. It pops, right? Which could be like the anger and the lashing out, or you let it go and it's spiraling all over the place, which could be like a binge or whatever. We don't let the air out of the balloon slowly, because if we do that, then we're not going to spiral. We're not going to pop, but we're so afraid. You had said something earlier, and I'd really be interested on how you help support clients in doing this. Like, what are you afraid of? If someone hears you, if you are seen, if you are taking space, how do you help clients with that? What has been your experience once someone realizes like nothing?
We do a lot of truth as exercises, because a lot of these fears are limiting beliefs that they have. So then we work on like, okay, so, throughout your life, maybe like you had an aunt or someone had said that you were stupid, and that just stayed with you because of this one incident. You dropped the dish in the kitchen and she got really mad at you. And so and it stays. These words are so important. That's why it's like, that whole 4 agreements, like be impeccable with your words. So good words can just lift you up, and some bad words, some, mean or cruel words will stay with you forever, from a child to whenever. And so we really work on those. We work on writing those statements, everything that, she believes about herself. Then we write about, like, is it true? We go through it. Then I have her write all the things that are actually, like, the things that she's accomplished, all the amazing, great things. Because once they have the visual and we do this exercise together, they realize, like, oh my goodness, like, why do I believe this in myself? Is there any evidence? Is there any facts? There isn't. It's just because someone said this to me a long time ago, so I'm scared. And that fear keeps them. So then it's like pushing themselves, like, what would you do better if you trusted yourself just 10% more? 10% more if you could just let go of the fear. So we really work with that fear to get you to a level of courage to be able to make that. So with whatever, it's like, okay, well, today I want you to, when you're at this meeting, I want to make sure like you raise your hand and say one statement, like make a comment. So little baby steps so that they start feeling like, okay, like I can do something and I can let go of those beliefs. Those are the things that I do with them.
I love it. Yeah. Just helping. It's almost like a cognitive behavioral like reframe, and being able to help them see what is the evidence to support this thought? What is the evidence to refute this thought? And most of the time, there's maybe one thing that will support it and hundreds of other things that refute it. I like to tell them, for those listening, when we're talking about evidence, I like to say evidence that you can bring to court, because oftentimes they want to use evidence that's based out of that filter that I'm stupid, right?
Like lens that they think they're seeing themselves through.
Yes. I'm like, no. What have we actually accomplished, right? And maybe where did we feel like I wouldn't say this to someone like, where did we feel, stupid, or where in our lives has that been supported, right? And factually supported. And most of the time, and I'm sure you experience, they're like, well, other than my aunt saying that, Never.
I love that. I love the court evidence. That's the key. It's so
Mhm.
true because most of the time it isn't. And when they come to see it and they see it, and then they have to say these, positive statements to themselves to kind of change their mindset about themselves.
Well, and I think I said this when we spoke the first time, trauma is not what happens to us. Trauma is the story we make up about ourselves, about what happens to us, because that is the thing that creates the fear or the shame or the guilt. And the brain doesn't like that feeling. So it creates a response anytime it's feeling a potential danger, or like I say, anything that smells like, feels like, tastes like, sounds like your trauma. The brain creates a response to keep you from that. And in all reality, it's really just a story that we make up. It's not actually what happens to us, because two people can go through a similar trauma and have a very different response. Yeah. I want to talk about, you talked about going into perimenopause. This is something you and I have touched on. And, so many women can feel very confident and know themselves. And then perimenopause hits and they're just like, who the hell is she? Like, who is this person looking at me in the mirror? And you call midlife a calling and not a crisis. And I need every woman to turn up the volume so you can explain what you mean by calling for these women.
Well, I feel like because throughout all our life, we are giving and giving and giving. And I feel like when we get to that point, for most of us, usually we have done, if we've gotten married or had kids, it's kind of like, okay, check, 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 or education, careers, most of it. And if you haven't, then it's a time, then you check in and say, what do I want to do? Either the opportunities are endless. So this is a time to kind of say, okay, I'm so much wiser. I know so much more than I did in my 20s.
Right.
I'm so much more confident, and kind of like stop worrying about other people. Do self-prioritizing, having self-love, start taking care of you without apologizing, without the guilt. So this is a calling, is a message to kind of reevaluate your life, to check in with yourself and see, am I living in an alignment? Am I living with the things that most matter to me? What direction is my life going? Doing a check-in to clarify your values and see where you are, or where do you see yourself 5, 10 years from now? Or if you had a magic wand, where would you want to be, is really key to kind of wake up. And that's, it's like, I feel like that should be a moment for you to kind of really wake up and say, okay, this is my life. I've given enough. But now I have to start taking care of me. So that's the key. That's the key. That's the time in your life, because you're still young. You still have so many opportunities, and it's never too late. So if you want to take that class, you want to do that dance event, you want to travel the world, you want to change your job, this is the time. That my biggest problem is when people feel like it's late, or they keep saying, well, I'm going to do that when, and whatever happens. And God forbid something else happens. And it's never, even when I was trying to do this whole coaching and podcast, I have to tell you, it was right around when I first started thinking about it, it was like COVID hit. And of course, forget it. I was like, okay, this is the calling. I'm not supposed to do anything in my life. So then I'm like back to making 3 meals a day, like we all did, and just being the housekeeper, the nurse, the everything, 24/7. Then it's like right after that happened, we were in the middle of a move and construction, and it was just chaotic. Then my dad got diagnosed with cancer. So it was like never a right time. But if you wait for that right time, it's never going to happen. So you just have to say, this is my time. I have to take this chance.
Yes, absolutely. I love that so much, because again, we have been brainwashed to believe that midlife is when we become even more invisible, and that we lose our sex appeal and our confidence, and we are just these withering away humans, when it's absolutely not that. That was all jargon that was fed to us, and has been being fed to us since like the 1600s. I just did a whole history on perimenopause, and they called it like had like a mania, like a hysteria. It was hysteria that women we're having because they're going through this very natural process. And we have to change the narrative, as you're saying, about the being in midlife and realizing like, baby, you've just played 2 quarters. We still got a whole halftime and 2 more quarters to play, right? So what do we want to do? How do we want to show up in this time? And it is a wonderful time to reflect. Part of my Mindset of Menopause program, we do a lot of this identity work, a lot of identity work and a lot of work on who gets to be to share in my piece and who does not anymore. Because I think it is so important for women to kind of have this time to reflect on, okay, I've been this wonderful woman as society wants me to be, and I've taken care of the kids and I've done all of the things. Now what do I want? Right? Now what do I want? And I love for those of you listening, you had briefly touched on this. There's a therapeutic intervention. It's called the miracle question. And it's like the magic wand. And I will use this with clients. I used to use it when I had a office, and I use it on Zoom. I say, when you close out there's a little icon that's like the door shutting, and the guy's walking on the little icon at the bottom. When that closes out, say that has a magic wand, or it's a miracle that will happen. And as soon as we close the Zoom, your life is exactly like you would imagine it to be. How will you know it's different? So for you guys listening, I want you to use what Pearl is saying and start to use these tools so that you can begin that process. And another thing you said is, it's never going to be the right time. It's never going to be the right time ever. But just taking those small steps, like you said, doing the first podcast, just going into that direction. If it feels like this is the life that I want to lead, you will begin to recognize, and I don't know if your experience was the same as mine, like once you start, it just kind of happens, right? Because it's what's so true for you that it's almost like every step becomes a bit easier. I'm not saying it's easy all the time, but it just flows, maybe is the word I'm looking for. I don't know if you had that same experience where once I actually started doing it, it was like, oh, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, because it was so easy to get to.
Yeah. I feel like there's 3 powerful questions that I kind of have, first time clients or anyone just to kind of, or if they're thinking about empowerment coaching or just doing a check-in, I'll just read those out for you. It's like, what part of yourself have you been hiding that you're ready to bring forward? Because we all have a part, right? And we're too afraid. Where in your life are you still waiting for permission? What would it feel like to live boldly without apologizing, but living as yourself? So these are questions that I feel like when you have a moment alone by yourself to really ponder and think about deeply and see where you see yourself in your life. But again, to add on, I do feel like society really does condition us. And if anything, it has conditioned us all throughout to basically just feel like that in order to be accepted, we need to shrink and wait for permission, but really shrink our voice, our ambition, our even our joy, instead of being like bold and confident and out there. But that's more accepted. And if you're not, then there's all these other labels that you can be labeled that woman, that I will. But that's the key. And as far as menopause goes, I just feel like for me personally, it's like stop listening to all the, it's like the bad stories. Yes. That affects me. Like I'll have whatever. It can be someone coming over and be like, oh my God, just wait until you turn 50. Oh, it's horrible. And then this happens. And then that happens. Ladies, let's not do that to ourselves. Like, because it has a ripple effect. Like you say that to me, then I'm going to be like, oh gosh, this lady told me that like in 2 years, my life is going to turn upside down. My back is going to hurt. I'm going to get really fat. Like, so your mind is so powerful. So if we can all like help each other and say, no, it's just another stage in our life. We go through different stages, but with the help, like yourself, as you have a program, find the resources, find the right books, find what works for you. And before you know it, you can transition from that stage. It's not the end. Like we need to stop making it this like scary monster and that like our life is over as a woman.
No, absolutely not. And it really just has begun because, like you said, we have a different way of thinking and we have a different, I mean, even just financially, we're in a better place. There's just so many positive things that are happening. And really, we are just, when we are in that negative mindset, it's because number one, again, that's what society told us. But number two, also, we have to think about you guys. And I know I've touched on this. The women before us were told that doing things like hormone therapy would cause them cancers and all these things. It was absolutely a like fear mongering around this. So they didn't, and then it was like, well, there's no other option. So good luck. And for them, it might have been that turning 50 was really hard because they weren't given the support that we have today. And not just the hormone therapies that are now we're, working with the FDA to get the black box label off of some of these menopause hormone therapies, but also people like you and I who study this, who are wanting to change the narrative and knowing that whether it's just following people like yourself or using you as a coach, like there is more support than the women before us had. And I think that's really important to recognize.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about the 3 questions. I absolutely love those. How does one, so I was going through and I was like, okay, yes. Okay. I got that.
You're a good student.
Thank you. I'm doing it. Listen, it's a therapy. This is a coaching session for me. It just happens to also be recorded for my audience. So what are signs that someone is leading from their full self? Not the fear, not the perfection, not the performance. She is in her, just true her, and she is leading her life. What are some signs?
I think, first of all, just being in the flow, the good energy. I'm really, really good with energy. So if someone is just authentic and real and in the flow and not, like not envious, not just concentrating on the present day, on their own life, you can tell that is a person who is living in alignment, who's in the flow, who's happy, who's a full, empowered woman because she's like embraced all parts of herself and acknowledged is as who she is as a real person. So that's the key, is that energy that they give off when you, especially first impression, when you meet them.
Right. I have something to ask because I've noticed this lately, is that for someone who's not healed, that energy can feel very threatening to them. And, when someone is has that confidence and knows who they are and is authentic to themselves, for unhealed women, it can be very off-putting. Have you experienced that before?
I think you've nailed that exactly. A lot of situations you get, different girls or friendships, ladies, that they have problems, like getting along or whatnot. It can even be family members. Because if one person is in alignment and is being real, the other person has not been healed, they immediately feel very intimidated. And that's where they want to be. But instead of saying like, oh my gosh, like I need help, or I'm dealing with this and that, they immediately might lash out. They might make a smirk, make a comment to try hard to make that, the other lady who's, in alignment feel bad or trigger her. And that's their way of, you're not for me, because they immediately feel it's their own insecurity and their own pain. And they're like, well, I wish I could do that. I wish I could be like her. Well, who does she think she is? And it's thoughts that go in their head. And then immediately, and that's why you will get, you'll be at a lunch or something. And then some ladies don't get along because immediately they're put off by the other person. And the other person's like, oh my gosh, that's such negative energy. I don't want to be around her.
Right.
Well, if they had a real one-to-one conversation, you would realize that there is a lot more there. And, one person has done their healing, one person hasn't.
Yeah, I've experienced that personally, where I was told that I make things about myself in capacities like I was a maid of honor in a wedding, and I was, wanting to make sure it was great for her, and like didn't want to bother a lot of the women, especially with the financials. And I'm like going through, you, as someone who is in very self-aware, I'm going through like, where could I possibly have like given her that perception? And then finally I realized, I said, Christina, you could have been absolutely perfect, and she's still going to see you that way because you are authentic to who you are and you're unapologetically you. And some women who are not that cannot handle that. And like you said, who does she think she is to be her? And it's given me a lot of healing to recognize it's healing and hurtful, because it's like, I'm never going to be good enough for you until you change your perception of me, which ultimately means changing your perception of yourself. And it's
I
sad.
have to say, I have experienced that personally myself too. And it is painful, it is difficult. But I actually remember my teacher, when I went through my coaching program, she basically told me, she's like, Pearl, you have to be ready that you're not for everybody. And sometimes your energy is going to it's going to make people scared or whatnot. And you can't take that personal. And it happens, throughout. And now I just say, like, I'm not going to be for everyone. I might not be everyone's coach or everyone's podcast or everyone's friend. And that's okay. And as long as, and you just accept that and say, I'm happy with, this is the way I am. I like to be real. I can't handle fakeness. I'm not going to act like someone else just to make someone else happy. That's just not my character. And so once we, people like me and you accept that, then, then it's like, then just we find our people.
Yes, I think that's why we connect so well, because we are very much in alignment with ourselves. There is no competition. It's just good vibes and energy, and I love it. It's so freeing, you guys. I want you to hear it. It's just so freeing. And you just feel like, I will say with those friendships that have ended, what it also has done is open up space, because I don't like the way that feels. So it opens up space to what feels good, because I'm like, oh, this is different. Like, this is really positive and empowering. So last question, what do you hope that every woman walks away after hearing your message today? I know they're walking away with a lot of good information, but just in case we miss anything, what do you hope they hear?
So my key thing is to stop waiting for permission, stop being invisible. You just have to live your life to the fullest, and just don't, exist, but like really live your life. And when people work with me, the whole thing is that I don't make you become a different person. I just help you become home to yourself. So we're all there. Everyone out there is real, is golden, but through life, through different journeys, through different traumas, we've had to kind of bury that real part of us. And, as a woman empowerment coach, I help you kind of bring out that goldenness that you already have and come, real to yourself. That's really it. It's just, stop dimming your light, live your life, be you, be real. And if you need help, I'm here to help you. And just to add on, I can send it to you, but I have like a code, a link that they can sign on, and they'll get a free meditation from me, and also a mini workbook about the female fluence that we talked about. So it kind of gives them an idea, if they wanted to actually work with me, what are some of the things we do.
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to actually download it myself. Where can people find you?
So I am everywhere. I'm on Instagram. It's at Pearl Mashour _ Female Fluence. But my podcast, Female Fluence, is on every platform you listen on podcasts. And then I'm like on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, everywhere.
Love it. We will put all your links in the show notes so people can find you. Thank you so much. I feel great. I am ready to go.
Because I know it's a difficult day. So
it is, but we are We're good. Thank you so much. For everyone listening, please share this with your girlfriends. You have that group of women who you love. You want them to be the best versions of themselves. Please share this with them, because I think that all of you can relate to the things that Pearl has discussed. And it just can open up such a wonderful conversation with the women in your life that you care about. So if you could share, and if you haven't already, as always, I ask that you follow this show wherever you listen to your podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, to subscribe to our channel. And if you haven't figured this out already, listening to Pearl, I'm going to leave you the same way I do, reminding you that what you say in your mind, you see in the mirror. Bye-bye.